Hey guys, hope everybody is doing good. Obviously from the tone of my voice and the title, you know that it's not going to be a lighthearted video, so just giving you guys a fair warning. I've been trying to get more towards the lighthearted stuff because I know I've been kind of doing more darker stuff in the last few videos, but one of my subscribers left a comment on a video that I did called How I Developed Anxiety or something like that. I'll link that video in the description below, but she left a comment talking about how her dad committed suicide when she was 19 years old. And I know the subscriber personally, and I thought that it was extraordinarily brave of her to put that out there for anybody to come across. I'm really proud of her because it's such a personal story. I know that she did it in the intention of bringing awareness to the subject, and I felt that I needed to honor that by talking about it myself, acknowledging that comment. I know the subscriber personally, so I know how much that has affected her through the years. And in that video, I talk about personally how I lost my dad. I don't know how my dad died exactly because we never did an autopsy report. But he wasn't a healthy guy. He had diabetes, he was on multiple different medications for multiple different illnesses. He had 3 strokes in his lifetime, and he had a bunch of stuff. So the theory is that my dad went fishing, had a heart attack, couldn't get to his pills on time, and then basically fell off the boat. And from the little that we know, there's a possibility that he didn't even drown. That he probably died before he even fell in the water. So obviously I don't know what happened to my dad, but that is the theory that most people are going with because we never did an autopsy report. Losing my dad in that way was extraordinarily difficult. It was sudden, it was hard, but the pain of losing somebody to suicide, I can't even imagine that. Because when you lose somebody to illness or old age or, accidents, that's one thing. But to lose somebody to suicide, for that person to make that conscious choice to take their own life despite having family and friends around them, the pain that it leaves behind to the people that have to continue to live without them, I can't even imagine that pain. I've never personally had anybody commit suicide around me, so obviously I've never been through that pain myself. I've only lost people through a possible heart attack and some natural causes. But I do have a little bit of experience in me trying to commit suicide. And I wanted to talk about this because my subscriber was brave enough to share. I figured this is something that I want to share to you guys to bring awareness to suicide itself. So when I was a teenager, I had a pretty rough teenage years. I mean, not rough in where, I was abused and tormented and all that kind of terrible things that happen to a lot of people. In that sense, I actually had a fairly good teenage year. But it was rough for me at the time because, my dad was always kind of coming in and out of my life. One moment he'd be there, next moment he would leave. And, at 16, was it 16, 15? I don't remember. Maybe it was 14. It was somewhere in that, between 14 and 16, my dad and my mom finally divorced. And at that time, that was really hard for me because my dad went on to create a new family. He met another lady, they had a child together, and at that time in my life, that was really hard for me because I loved my dad, I loved my mom, and every child wants their family to stick together. But looking at it now that I'm an adult and looking back, I love my stepmom. I think she's an amazing woman, and I also have an awesome half sister who I just adore so much. Plus I have a stepsister, and it was hard for me at the time, but now that I look back at it as an adult, I would almost say it was a blessing in disguise because yes, my parents didn't end up staying together, but it created a whole new connection in my life that it's awesome. It's amazing. Like it opened up my world. So at the time it was hard, and that caused a lot of issues for me mentally. But since then, like, I've grown up and, you know, I see things differently now. And obviously, like, back then I didn't understand. I blamed my mom because she was working almost 24 hours a day, and I blamed my dad because, well, I was blaming everybody, really. I was blaming everybody involved who didn't deserve to be blamed, because honestly, as we know now as adults, feelings and emotions and relationships are complicated. And we view our parents as being these, like, people who can do no wrong. But when you become an adult, you realize, oh, they're just as messed up as we are, you know? Like, nobody ever grows up and becomes perfect. Everybody has trauma and hardships that they face that shape them into the human being they become. And those experiences end up shaping you as an adult. So obviously people are complicated. We are free thinkers. We have our own emotions, and we're fueled by them. So, you know, like right now I have no ill feelings to anybody. Like I was angry at my stepmom. I'm not anymore. Like I said, I love her so much. My dad, I was really mad at because he left us. But you know what? My dad was looking for something that for some reason we couldn't provide him, and he felt that he needed to do that. And, you know, I've been in that situation myself as an adult, so I have no ill feelings towards him for anything, you know. At the time, obviously, I was angry, but I didn't understand that as a child. And my mom, you know, she worked her ass off to put a roof over my head, and it was hard being without her, especially during those moments when I was, you know, dad had left. Like, I wanted to be with my mom and spend time with my mom, but she was never there because she was working all the time. So I was a latchkey kid all by myself trying to figure out this complicated emotions. And so I was really angry at her because I felt like I was being abandoned. You know, she was hurting just as much. Her family had fallen apart and she had to work as a single mom to put a roof over my head. At the time, I didn't understand that. And so, like, regardless, as far as me goes, like, it doesn't bother me in that sense anymore as an adult, because I understand that. Like, I've had those feelings myself, and I feel like I'm dragging this on. Anyways, so, but for me, at the time when I was at that age, when everything was happening, I felt like my entire life was falling apart. I didn't know how to process it myself. And so I got severely depressed, and I wasn't doing well in school because I couldn't focus in school. And so my teachers were basically telling me that I wasn't going to succeed in life, that, you know, I was stupid. I actually had a teacher tell me I was stupid. And, you know, I remember one of my friend's parents had no faith in me whatsoever. She basically, because I was a high school dropout, and I remember she was like, "Oh, that girl is gonna end up in jail. She's not gonna amount to anything in life." Like, that was, at that time, that was my perception of how everybody perceived me. And so that weighed on me a lot. Like, I felt like an idiot. Like, I wanted to pursue all these goals of becoming a filmmaker, going to New York City, doing all these things that were grand and amazing, but I was stupid and dumb, and I wasn't good at school, and I wasn't going to get anywhere in life. And that was what a lot of people around me were saying about me. So I was also very depressed about that, because not only was my life falling apart, but I felt like I didn't have a future beyond my teenage years, because who's going to hire a high school dropout? Like, I didn't understand how the world worked. Family was falling apart. I was feeling like an idiot. I didn't feel like I had a future. And at that moment in time, I was like, I don't understand why I have to keep living if I'm not going to get anywhere in life. And so I tried to kill myself 3 times. And 3 times I ended up in a mental hospital for severe depression and suicidal tendencies. The last time that I tried to kill myself was a big eye-opening experience for me, because I got fed up one class period and I went to the bathroom and I just wanted to end it. So stupid me tried to hang herself in the high school bathroom. I couldn't go through with it because obviously, well, first thing, I didn't have anything to hang myself with, and the one rope that I had broke. And so I couldn't go through with it. I went back to class. I acted like nothing happened. And that night I was on the phone with my boyfriend at the time, and I was telling him about what had happened that day because I was scared about myself and I didn't quite understand what was happening, and I was just feeling so low. So I told him, and he told his mom, which at the time I was pissed. I was like, dude, be snitching. But I'm glad that he did now as an adult, looking back, because that literally changed the course of my life, and his actions literally saved me. And here's why. So he told his mom, and the next day I went to school. I got pulled out of my first class and was sent to the nurse's office. And at this point, I was really good friends with the nurse because I spent so much time there. I couldn't stand class. I always ran to the nurse's room faking an illness or something. But anyways, so I got called into the nurse's office, and when I got there were paramedics, and I didn't understand what was going on. And she was like, hey, we received a phone call, anonymous phone call, that you tried to commit suicide. And obviously, like, I knew who it was. I only talked to one person about it. She had me sit down. The paramedics were taking my blood pressure, talking to me, making sure that, like, I was okay and that I didn't hurt myself. And then the nurse said, your dad is going to meet us at the hospital and your mom is on the way to the school. My mom came to the school, and that was really, you have to understand, that was really hard for my mom to do because she worked all the time, and for her to actually take time away from working to come to me, and like that meant a lot. Because my mom never left her work for anything, because she was so dedicated to putting a roof over my head and making sure that I never wanted for anything. And so for her to take time off work to come to the school, that made me realize how much I was loved, number one. Two, when my mom came to the school, she had no idea what was going on. I don't think the school just told her she needed to come. There was an emergency, so she came right away. So my mom came to the school, she came to the nurse's office, and as she opened the door, I remember seeing her opening the door, and her eyes just went wide because what she saw was her daughter surrounded by two paramedics, and she didn't know what was going on. The school didn't tell her what was going on. And the nurse went up to her and whispered in her ear what had happened, that I had tried to kill myself. And at that moment, my mom, basically, her knees just buckled underneath her and she just collapsed onto the floor. And I just remember seeing the pain in her face as she realized what was happening and what I had almost done. And I remember, it was such a stupid moment to realize this, but I had at that moment realized how much I was loved and how much I was cared for. And then the paramedics took me to the hospital, and my dad was there, and he was scared out of his mind because I'm sure they had already told him what had happened. And sorry guys, I don't normally talk about this part of my life. I talk about a lot of things, but this is something I don't really talk about. Actually, I don't think I've ever shared this before to anybody except for like close people. So I went to the hospital and they were getting ready to admit me, and I knew at that moment that that was the last attempt that I was ever gonna make, because at that moment I realized that if I died, I wouldn't suffer anymore. But I saw in that moment how much the people around me who cared about me and loved me would suffer. I don't know, like, I've had that experience personally from being somebody who tried to commit suicide. Thankfully, I never succeeded. But I've never had anybody commit suicide around me, but I know people who have had that experience themselves, and let me tell you, it's true. People who end up losing somebody to suicide, they never recover. People think that, oh, the world will be a better place without me. No, that's delusional thinking. Nobody is better. Everyone will always wonder for the rest of their lives, what could I have done to fix the situation? They'll carry that guilt forever. I felt like this was something I needed to share. I know this is really dark, and I really didn't know. It took me a couple days because I know that that my subscriber had left that 2 days ago, and I was gonna make a video as soon as I read it, but I had to give myself a couple days because I wasn't quite sure I wanted to share this part of my life because I've never talked about it on camera before, and it's such a sensitive topic. But I felt like we need to bring awareness to this. That's why I push so hard on self-development and self-help, because if I had succeeded in killing myself, I would have never got to experience how beautiful this world is and how amazing it could be. Like, at that moment when you're so dark and so depressed, like, you don't realize that. You don't, and I know that because you don't see anything but the pain that you're feeling. That's not going to be the rest of your life. And the most powerful feeling that I came out of that was I had the ability to change my life the way I wanted to. So anybody out there who's struggling to make sense of their lives and try to find a place in the world and trying to find meaning in a point where they don't feel like they have meaning, like my advice to you as somebody who's been there and somebody who almost took their own life is stop searching for meaning. Stop searching for like a reason to be here, because the beauty of our lives, the beauty of who we are as people and being free thinkers, is that we have the ability to decide what kind of mark we want to leave on this planet. We have the ability to decide what kind of story we want people to tell of us in the future. We have the ability to change our own world and decide for ourselves what we want to do in our lives. We're not limited to what people around us tell us. Remember, people thought I was going to end up in jail or pregnant at a young age, or like, I don't know, just nobody had any hope for my future. And since then, I've grown, I've been an entrepreneur, I'm basically living the life I want to live. I don't know, I remember what it was like, the feeling of feeling dark and hopeless and not feeling like you have any place in this world. The only message that I want to end this video with is, I understand what it feels like to feel hopeless, to feel like you're in such a dark place that you don't want to even continue living anymore. Like, I've been there, I've felt that, and I know that when somebody tells you, hey, there is hope in the future, you don't see it. I know that because I've been there. I've had people be like, hey, it's gonna be better. And I know me saying this probably doesn't help you, especially if you're in that dark place. But I know that from experience, that is something that you have to realize for yourself on your own. Nobody could teach that to you. Like, if you want your life to be better, you have to actively work to make it better. But let me tell you, it is worth it 100%. If you work to make your own life better, to decide that you want to be a positive light in the world because you've lived in so much darkness, there is so much potential in you and the things that you could do for the world and the people around you and for yourself. Like, there is so much. There is so much beauty that gets born out of pain. And if I had the magical power to make everybody who's going through that darkness to understand that, like, that would be the one superpower that I want. Because life is worth it. And it is beautiful. You just have to allow it to be. I'm gonna cut this because I don't know what else to say. I'd just be rambling on at this point. So thank you guys so much for being a part of my life. And honestly, like, you guys are the light in my life. and hopefully I could reciprocate that and be the light in yours. I just want to say that I don't know what I want to say. I think I've said everything I wanted to say. I'm not going to drag this on any longer. I love you guys again so much. Thank you so much for being a part of my world. And I will see you guys in the next episode. And I promise it won't be so hard and heavy. I think I got all the hard and heavy stuff out of the way. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me through this journey. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Love you guys.